Chair, you were live.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Annapolis Board of Appeals special virtual meeting for August 17, 2022. This meeting is being broadcast on the City of Annapolis YouTube channel. My name is Bob Gallagher, Chair of the Board. This virtual format allows the public to observe the meeting through the video link and submit written comments through the City of Annapolis website. There are links to the YouTube channel, the comment form on the city's website, and to the city's database for case information relating to the cases you'll hear about tonight. All those links may be found on the agenda for tonight's meeting. People that you see on the screen are members of the Board of Appeals. When a case is called, representatives of the parties to the case will also appear on the screen. Also participating in the meeting are our recording secretary, Ken Consoli, our technician tonight, Julian Jock. Also participating, we may have representatives of the city attorney's office. Counsel to the board, Lisa Bell, may join us, and various representatives of the Department of Planning and Zoning, including Jacqueline Rouse, liaison to the board. Any public comments received by noon today and matters before the board this evening will have been provided to the board and the parties and will be made part of the record in that particular case. The public may also submit comments on any case continued from tonight to a future hearing until noon on the day that the hearing is resumed. We ask everyone but the members of the board to mute their audio. If anyone else wishes to speak during the meeting, please raise your hand and I will call on you to speak. Let me remind everyone that communication with the board about any case by anyone other than a party to a case must go through the comment form on the city's website. All communications by parties to the case should go through board liaison, Jackie Rouse. No one should contact any member of the board directly about any pending case. So we'll begin with the meeting with a roll call. Ms. Consoli, would you like to call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Mr. Zazali,
Yes, here.
Dr. Chen,
Present.
Mr. Walsh,
Present.
Mr. Dews. I don't believe we're expecting him, sir.
Right. Thank you. Looks like we have a quorum. So have the members of the board had a chance to review the agenda for the meeting tonight? And are there any comments or corrections?
Nope.
If not, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to accept the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. The agenda is unanimously approved. Next, we have our minutes from the meeting of July 20th. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes of July 20th? All right. In the absence of any corrections or conditions, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of July 20th?
I move the minutes of the July 20th, 22 meeting be accepted.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's unanimously approved. The first business item tonight is a request for an extension in special exception 2018-003 at 424 4th Street in Eastport. So, Jackie, is that something you want to tell us about? Jackie's still not here. Do we have
Jackie's here, Bob.
Jackie?
She's just muted.
I was temporarily log in. This is an extension request. We'll accept restaurant at 424 4th Street, which has, there were a number of appeals. They've been by the pandemic, and I believe the applicant's attorney, Mr. Christoph, is here with us tonight. I did forward to you some exhibits that he sent regarding the extension request, a series of those that in a series of emails, and we are supporting the extension. We've had a number of these that have been caused by the pandemic, but Mr. Chris, want to address any concerns you have?
All right, let's hear from Mr. Christoph for a minute. Are you there, Mr. Christoph?
I am, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you. I'm Anthony Christoph. I'm the attorney, as you know, for Northeast Holdings LLC. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine, and I'm almost finished digging out from under the blizzard of paper that you sent us. But what I would like to ask you is if you could simply just lay out the relevant points in timeline for when the application was filed, when it was effective, when it expired, when you applied for the extension.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have the actual date of the application before me, but the Board of Appeals initial approval of the special exception was March 3rd of 2020. The Circuit Court on March 26th of 2021 affirmed the approval of the ZBA and also the special exception, but remanded the special exception to the board for adequate articulation of its findings relative to its denial, which you'll recall, of the several variance requests. On June 8, 2021, the board affirmed its grant of the special exception and stated that the conditions imposed allowed the modification considered by the Board of Appeals on the same night as it heard an appeal by the same protestants on a request which had been granted by the planning director to modifications to the special exception. That case was appealed to the Circuit Court. The Circuit Court affirmed, the Board of Appeals decision on February 7, 2022. That has now been appealed to the Court of Special Appeals to be argued sometime in October. As I indicated to you, if you'll let me go forward here, as good cause for the request, and maybe I'll answer your question, Mr. Chairman, in this. As good cause for the request that we're making now, note the rather tortured and time-consuming journey that this application has taken through appeals by the protestants to the Circuit Court and Courts of Special Appeal. Note the ZDBA granted by the board, granted by the Circuit Court, was appealed to and affirmed by the Court of Special Appeals. The modification request granted by the Board of Appeals, heard the same night as I've indicated on the special exception application by the board, also affirmed by the Circuit Court, but appealed to the Court of Special Appeals. That appeal has been withdrawn by the protestants. Finally, this application for special exception actually heard and granted twice by the board, affirmed twice by the Circuit Court, and is now scheduled for hearing in October in the Court of Special Appeals. As a basis for our request for extension, I note also that the COVID-induced delays, which are reflected, in the various state, city proclamations, orders, and resolutions, which I have given you copies of, and I think that's what you're alluding to when you said the massive paperwork or some of it. It's the applicant's position that as a result of those proclamations, orders, and resolutions, the year period for filing an extension after the board's approval was extended until August 15 of this year, and our request for extension was filed on July 15 of this year. I can go through those various orders and proclamations if you wish me to, but I believe that they very clearly establish that there was, in essence, a hiatus of over a year before the time ran in which the applicant had to seek a 6-month. And my letter to you of July 15 erroneously says a 1-year extension, but in fact, pursuant to 21-26-070, as the board's aware, you get two attempts at 6-month extensions. But again, our position as a result of the various proclamations, as I've said, by both the city and the state, was to extend the time for filing a request for the first extension until August 15 of this year. That request was filed on July 15. I pointed to the board that notwithstanding the delays, the applicant has continued to actively pursue all necessary approvals and permits for the establishment of the restaurant. I don't know why this happens to me. Specifically, grading permit GRD 22011 and building permit BLD 220166 have been approved earlier this month. The applicant is waiting to pick them up because that will entail filing of an $80,800 bond. And obviously the applicant is waiting to assure that this board will grant the request for the first 6 months extension of the special
All
exception.
right, let me ask you, do the appeals toll the running of the time for filing for an extension?
Appeals to the circuit court do not.
Do not? That's interesting. It's not clear to me from the code. Is there case law on that?
I believe that the code provides only that the stay is pending.
1 year after the date of special exception. But
Yes.
is the special exception final while appeals are still pending?
Is it final while appeals are pending?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay, all right, that helps. Let me ask you one more question. Are there, this application dates back to 2018. Are there any requirements for a special exception that came into effect after that date of the application in 2018 that would apply to this case if the application was filed now, but do not apply because it was filed back in 2018?
None of which I'm aware, Mr. Chairman, and I think I even said in my letter that there has been no change in the facts or justification presented to the board. And your question is a different one. To my knowledge, there have been no change in the special exception requirements either.
Jackie, do you know of any changes?
Have to date been no approved changes to
Okay.
Title 21 that would impact this use. There is a pending change that could potentially impact it. That would be the legislation that will probably be voted on in September, which would eliminate the parking requirements
Yeah, gotcha.
for
Okay.
restaurants. So that's the only thing that would be going.
If that's going to happen, it would have been more convenient for it to happen 4 years ago. Okay, any questions from board members for either staff or counsel for the applicant?
No.
Nope.
All right, it seems to me that the requirements for showing cause for a 6-month extension have been met. And it'd be my inclination to grant it. Anyone have any different thoughts on that?
No, I agree with you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, maybe we have a motion to approve the extension.
Motion to approve such succession 18-03 for 6 months from this date or the date of the end of the last 1 year, whichever it is.
All right, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you, Mr. Christoph.
Thank you, members. Appreciate it.
Let's see. Next, we will resume our hearing in the case of special exception 2022-004. Special exception application relating to 41 Randall Street. To amend special exception 2017-004, an existing special exception for a standard restaurant. And the amendment would allow, in addition to beer and wine, sales of liquor on property there at 41 Randall Street. We heard at our last meeting, we reviewed the staff report and all of the exhibits and heard from the applicants. This business has been there for a while. They're changing. The theme of the business is going to be a Latin flavored restaurant. And they'd like to be able to serve margaritas, I guess. So that seems like a good idea to me. Have there been any more public comments, Jackie?
Received no additional public comments on the project.
Okay. Do the board members have any questions for the staff or the parties? No? Would someone care to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that special exception SE 2018-003. Yes, no,
04.
2022-006.
thank you. Be granted based upon the evidence given in the staff report, as well as any testimony given before this board.
2022-004, just to be.
Yes,
Oh, my mistake.
2022-004.
Apologies. All right. Is there a second?
I second that SE 2022-004 be approved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it's unanimously approved. We appreciate that. Thanks to everyone involved.
Thank you to the board.
Good luck with the rest of your application.
I look forward to trying those margaritas.
Yeah.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
episode.
All right. Next, we have special exception. Oh, I see. I got my pages and my script shuffled here. That's all. Special exception 2022-006 is a special exception application by J&B Historic Properties to establish a delicatessen on property located at 188 Main Street. I think Mr. Hyatt's involved in this one, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am.
Welcome. We haven't seen you for a while.
I've missed seeing everybody. Thank
I'm sure.
He doesn't age. I don't know how he does it.
you.
All right, Jackie, will you be introducing this one?
So this is a special exception to establish a delicatessen at 188 Main Street. There has been a business operating there also under the same name for a few years. They were approved, but it has a kind of a little bit of a complicated history. It was originally established under the coffee shop category, and it has operated that way pretty much since it opened, even though at some point in time, the whole focus of the operation evolved. And the current operation, which has been franchised, as I understand it, is now, they're no longer a coffee shop. To be a coffee shop, and I explained all of this in the staff report, your principal business has to be the sale of coffee and other hot beverages. The focus of Mason's now is on sandwiches, lobster, and other types of sandwiches, I would assume. So they had to, in order for us to issue a new use permit for the new owner of the business, they needed to bring themselves into compliance with the current regulations under the code and the appropriate zoning category, which is a delicatessen. That did involve them having to modify somewhat their operation. They had to reduce the number of seats in the location to 10 seats. They also operate in conjunction with an ice cream business that's called JoJo's, that is a permitted use subject to standards, that was part of the whole original operation, but the two uses are actually in different parts of the first floor of that building. So the special exception is just limited to the delicatessen use.
Okay. Are you satisfied that the notice and posting requirements have been satisfied?
property was posted in accordance with the code requirements. There was an ad put in the paper. There were letters sent out to all the property owners and business owners, et cetera, within the required distance. And
So that's a yes?
Hmm?
So that's a yes?
That's a yes.
Great. Okay, any public comments?
And we have received no public comments on the application.
All right, Mr. Hyatt, if there's something you would like to convey to the board on behalf of the applicants, we're happy to hear you. I don't think you need reminding that we've read the staff report and all of your submissions. So if you would just focus on what you think is essential for us to focus on tonight.
Sure, thank you. Alan Hyatt, 200 Westgate Circle in Annapolis. I represent Hector Hannibal, who I'm going to ask a few questions of momentarily, and his company called Seafood Suite Inc. I have John Harrison here as an expert witness. We'll try to limit the testimony because I think it's pretty clear what's going on here. What's interesting is in our code in the C2 zone, if you want to have a restaurant, you either fall in the category of standard restaurant or delicatessen. Those are your choices. And in order to be a standard restaurant, you have to restrict the amount of carryout to 10% of sales. The fact is that there are more than 10% of sales that are carryout on this project, this property, because we know that it's been in operation for 8 years. And as Ms. Rouse stated, it had a little bit of a convoluted path because it started out as a bakery and a coffee shop, and somehow it's selling lobster rolls, and probably could have gone on for many years without any issue. But Mr. Hannibal is going to be a franchisee of this of Mason's Famous Lobster Rolls, and you should know that this is the original location, and they have a number of franchises around the country now. So Mr. Hannibal's preparing to be a franchisee and buy the existing business, but it's not clear to me or to the City Department of Planning and Zoning that it really is operating correctly. So we are coming forth, 8 years after the fact, that has continued to operate as a lobster roll business. We're coming before you now to ask to establish a special exception. So that's why we're here. And it's kind of the check the box and just make all this legitimate. And the good news for Mr. Hannibal is he kind of knows what's going to happen. If he buys the establishment, he knows what the volume is, what's going on. It's not like a startup business. And he anticipates that it will be successful because it is a successful, popular establishment. And I think the fact that it's been there all these years is probably a testament that it meets the criteria of to be satisfied for a special exception. So with that, unless you have any questions for me, I will ask Mr. Hannibal to identify himself. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Hector Hannibal. I live at 2006 Drovers Lane in Cooksville, Maryland.
Mr. Hannibal, is it accurate that I stated you are proposing to be a franchisee and acquire the establishment at 188 Main Street? Is that right?
That is correct.
And it's your corporation, Seafood Suite Inc., that proposes to do that. Is that
Yes.
also correct? There's a ice cream business that operates in the rear that would continue. Is that also true?
Correct.
Right. And then Mason's Famous Lobster Rolls would continue in the front.
Absolutely.
Right. And we have a floor plan. Will you have that, Mr. Chairman and members of the board?
Yeah.
You want me to pull that up, or you have that in front of you?
Not necessary. Unless-
Okay.
If one of the board members wants to pull it up, they'll say so.
Okay, that's fine. So the lobster business is in the front, the ice cream business is in the back. Do you intend to continue in the same operation if the special exception is approved?
I do.
And if it's approved, you would buy the franchise, and you would buy the business, and you would operate as a delicatessen, correct?
Correct.
And you would operate the business at least part of the time yourself. You would be there.
Yes, I intend to. Yes, I intend to work in the business.
And the hours of operation, tell the board what they would be if you are successful here.
The store is open from 11 a.m. for business to 9 p.m. Hours of use would probably be 7 o'clock in the morning to midnight, 7 days a week.
You do not propose to serve alcoholic beverages or provide any type of entertainment, right? I mean, this is strictly, I mean, it's a fairly limited menu, which is also included in the package given to the board. Is that a fair statement?
Correct. New England style fare, yes.
Okay. All right. And then the equipment and any noise generated by the equipment, would you say that's minimal? I mean, you're not going to hear it outside of the establishment, are you?
No, there's no boisterous noise coming from any of the equipment, which is essentially the Turbo Chef oven that hums a little.
Right, but you can't hear that outside of the premises.
Absolutely not.
And you're not aware of any difficulties that the current operator has had with respect to police issues, loitering, things along those lines? There's been no issues there, right?
I am not aware of anything. No.
And then you have an arrangement where you put trash outside a half hour before its pickup. Is that right?
On trash day, it'll be put out. It's stored in a trash room in sealed bins. It's put out 30 minutes before pickup, and it is retrieved no later than 30 minutes after.
Okay. And you're cooking, you do minimal cooking, but I assume the cooking is filtered before.
There are filters that have been approved, and the cooking is really the warming up of lobster meat for the hot rolls, and there's grilled cheese, and soups are kept in warmers.
And as far as you know, it meets the current operation of the kitchen meets all the city codes.
Yes.
Grease interceptor. I mean, and there actually is no deep fryer in the establishment, right?
No.
Okay. How about
You
delivery?
don't have a hood. No.
Right. At deliveries and loading and unloading, how do you handle that, or how will you handle that?
Sure. That'll happen before 10 o'clock in the morning, before the traffic congestion. And there won't be any deliveries between noon and 6 p.m., but mostly in the morning.
Is it fair to say that your establishment would pick up the foot traffic that you anticipate up and down Main Street and that we have all observed currently exists up and down Main Street? Is that a fair?
Those are the patrons that we're hoping to serve, to continue. Yes, correct.
Okay, you were breaking up a little bit there. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I have bad Wi-Fi where I am.
Okay, all right. I think we heard you. So,
Okay.
But that's the plan. I mean, you have an establishment, you have a lot of tourists and workers down there and residents, but they're not likely to drive down there, park, and go to your facility as a destination. I mean, they're down there, right?
We're hoping for local and visiting patrons to continue to come into the store.
Would you agree that the establishment is fairly unique? There's really not much like that in the downtown district, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The New England style fare, the lobster rolls, which are the star of the show, are unique in the area and help add to the diversity of the food that's being offered on Main Street.
And you've spent some time studying this operation. You think it'll be successful? It will continue to be successful here?
About 3 years. So yes, I think so.
Very good. Okay. And then lastly, your employees, I think you mentioned to me, a lot of them are just dropped off, you know.
A majority are dropped off and picked up. Yes.
Mhm. But some will park presumably at the stadium and as necessary.
The 9-hour parking by, I believe, St. John's College. And then there are a couple of high school students who would park at St. Mary's. But most of them are dropped off and picked up.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I don't have any more questions for Mr. Hannibal. If the board has any questions, and
Questions from the board for Mr. Hannibal? No, okay.
All right. And then I'll have Mr. Harrison be brief. First of all, I would ask that he be accepted as an expert witness. I think you've accepted him before as an expert.
We don't qualify expert witnesses. Why don't you give me a proffer for what he's going to tell
Well,
us?
Mr. Harrison, there's certain standards that we have to satisfy under the city code for the establishment of special exception. Mr. Harrison, as former planning director and person who has testified about the community need and whether there's a negative impact on general welfare and those sort of things, that's what he would speak to.
So he's going to say all those requirements have been met.
Right, that's right.
And they're legal conclusions, wouldn't you say?
That's right.
So, and Mr. Harrison's not a lawyer. I don't see a great deal of value in that. Do any of my colleagues think they would like to hear from Mr. Harrison, or do you think you've heard enough?
I'm confident that the report that Mr. Hyatt has prepared covers all the necessary requirements to make a judgment on this case.
Yeah.
Okay, well then, if that's the case, I thank you for that. And Mr. Harrison, we can dispense of questioning. I would offer my exhibits into the record. I think we have 6 of them, 1 through 6. And I would simply proffer that, we've spelled out in the application how we satisfy the requirements of the code for special exception. If Mr. Harrison would have testified, he would have said that in his expert opinion, we would have satisfied the requirements. And with that, I will ask respectfully that you approve this, although I guess you have to keep the record open still, right?
Yeah, the evidentiary record is closed. With the admission of your exhibits and the staff report, et cetera. The only thing we will hear, should there be any public comments before we reconvene in September, we'll hear and consider those, but otherwise the record is closed. So any other questions from my colleagues on the board?
No.
Bob,
Yeah.
one additional point I wanted to make though, is that we did recommend longer hours of operation, even though the applicant did not request them. We did them so that they would have the flexibility in the future. They wanted to stay open later, or they had special events or whatever. So
Yeah, that's fine. I don't think we have a problem with that. Okay, well, we'll thank Mr. Hyatt and Jackie for teeing this up for us. And we'll have a decision for you on, what is it, September 6th. Great. Thanks
Okay.
again.
All right, thank you.
We'll excuse Mr. Hyatt and we'll move on to the next one.
All right, thank you.
That would be variance 2022-004. Application by property owners for a 20-foot reduction in the 30-foot rear yard setback requirement for the construction of a proposed 14 by 22 dormer with a 5-foot by 12.6 cantilevered balcony, addition on the rear of an existing house at 4 King Charles Place. All right, welcome everyone. Jackie,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Jackie, you're going to do this one too?
I'm going to tee this up. Yes, I am.
Good. Go
This
for
is
it.
an application for a variance. King Charles Place is a very tiny little street in the historic district, has I think six houses on. This is 3 houses that's located on the northeast side of King Charles. They were all platted with extremely small rear yard. The purpose of this variance is to add a dormer on the 3rd floor of the house with a cantilevered balcony. The other 2 houses on that side of King Charles Place already have the 3rd floor dormers with the cantilevered balconies. So we've had a preliminary review of this by the Historic Preservation Commission, and they, we'll have to go to public hearing before them, but they're supportive of the concept the architectural concept of this application. It's, the lots are very small, and this is the only opportunity this house would have to add some additional usable space on that third floor of the building. So and the reason it's a 20-foot variance, the actual bulk of the structure is going to be at 15 feet from the rear of the property line. But the cantilevered balcony extends further out into that 15 feet, and it's beyond, I think, the limit on a cantilevered balcony as the permitted obstruction is 3 feet, and this one is 5 feet. The total variance.
But the physical footprint on the ground
15 feet.
hasn't changed.
Yeah, and the physical footprint of the existing structure changes not at all.
Okay. Is it the opinion of staff that there's been compliance with the notice and
Yes.
posting rules?
Yes, it complied with all of the notice requirements. I don't even itemize them. I will just say that they have.
Have there been public comments? Jackie? Jackie, have there been public comments?
No, we've had no public comments.
All right. Is there someone who'd like to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, my name is Lynn Kraus. I'm one of the two owners of this property. The other one is Jim Lighthizer, he and I bought the property in 1974. We've owned it the entire time. He's on the phone.
Let me interrupt you, Mr. Kraus. If you're going to testify, I need to
Raise my hand.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Do you declare, subject to penalty for perjury, that the evidence you're about to give tonight is true to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Please go ahead. Keep in mind that we've read everything you've submitted.
Oh, this will be very short. So all we're trying to do is do what the other two houses that are next to us. And this house is one of four that were built that were identical, built in the 1940 timeframe. We're trying to make it into something because the house has never really been renovated since it was built. We've put in a better kitchen and we put in a better bathroom, but nothing of any consequence. We haven't changed any room size or anything. And this is a chance for us to bring the house into a modern home, and it'll certainly improve the neighborhood. It'll be like the two homes that are on the same side of the house with us that are next door to us. One next door and one, 2 doors down. We're not doing, as Ms. Rouse said, we're not doing anything to change the footprint of the property. And we're doing nothing different than the other two properties have done. And actually ours is probably less intrusive than the one in the middle between the three of us. So we're asking you to support the variance, and we need the variance because of the existing laws. And our backyard from one wall is 15 feet, 5 inches from the property line. And from the back deck, it's there's a little pooch out wall that's only 11.5 feet to the rear property line. And there's a little patio that's only about, so with that, it's only about 6 feet from the property line. So we really, as Ms. Rouse said, it's a very tiny lot, and this is the only way we can do anything to improve the property, add some square footage without having to change the footprint whatsoever. So.
I could see from the photo, you hardly have room to park your motorcycle.
Well, yeah, if I had one, I would. But what's interesting about the street, and this is a street you probably don't see very much. It's a quiet street, and as you all know, there's a parking lot in the end, right on Franklin Street, or on South Street, I mean. That parking lot was owned by the man who put these houses up there. And he had garages back there, a whole bunch of them that he rented. And including people on the street used them. And they got when that property was bought by the city to put the parking lot up, they tore all the garages down. But it's the street, everybody owns to the middle of the street, which is interesting. It's a private street, and everybody has a parking space, and they park on my side of the street or our side of the street. And everybody has a sort of a gentleman's agreement, and we all have a parking space, which is nice. So it's a great street and it's a great house, and we're trying to make it better.
Yeah, it's kind of a well-kept secret. Uh, Any questions from my colleagues on the board?
And I'm here with Rennie Booth, who is the architect who's done all the work on this thing. All I've done is just sign off and write checks. So.
Thanks.
Cross the question, are you a primary resident or?
No, I've owned it as a rental. I live on Prince George Street though, and I have lived there since '94. So, and I've been a resident of Annapolis since 1971 when I came here to be on the staff of the Naval Academy.
Does
I was in the Navy at the time.
the addition of, I mean, this would, the staff report indicates that this is not being done for financial gain. So this would be simply to improve the.
Yes, trying to make it better for Mr. Booth who lives there. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any more questions from the board?
I'm just a little bit curious, Mr. Kraus, the photos that you submitted, what they are intended to show. There
Well,
are.
Mr. Booth has the pictures right here.
There
Which ones you asked the question about?
I'm just curious what they're intended to show.
Oh, I see. In a stack of photographs, the first one, which is this picture right here, is the front of the house.
Yeah.
And the next picture in the sequence is it's the side of the house, the front, this being the front, that's being the side where all the bushes are. And that's the side where that faces Charles Street. The next picture is the back of the house, this right here.
Mm-hmm.
It's the back of the house. And you can see the tiny lot, and you see the structure that the next door house has. They've got a big deck. And our little deck is going to look like the one at the top. We're not going to have this big pooch out like they have on their property at all. The back of our property is not going to change whatsoever. Our property is not going to change at all. The next pictures, really don't add much to anything. They're pictures of, looking
Trees
out.
and bushes, that's why I
Right,
asked.
exactly. It was done for the nature lovers on the board.
Right, but the pictures are also of value, when this application goes to the Historic Preservation Commission, they really do will look at architecture in more detail and context. And so you have an application here that is a dual purpose application for both your approval and the HPC approval.
And I just wanted to follow up on Mr. Walsh's question, just so we're clear. So the proposed renovation is not for purposes of creating additional rentable, habitable
Oh,
space.
not at all. It's a single family dwelling, Ms. Chen, or Dr. Chen, I guess.
Oh,
Apologize.
fine.
So yeah, it's a single family dwelling. It's always been a single family dwelling. We bought it from the people that had owned it going back to the 40s. I think the original owner. So.
Mhm. Thank you.
Oh, no, we're not creating apartments, and none whatsoever. It's going to keep the same number of bedrooms, in fact.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
All right.
Right, if there are no more questions, we will close the record. All the staff report and all the exhibits will be admitted. And the hearing will be continued until September 6th, at which time we hope to offer you a decision. Mr.
Thank
Crowe.
you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Any questions at all that we haven't answered?
Too late now, we close the record.
Well, all right, we're closed. Well, good. Thank you very much for your time and your patience. And Jackie said we'd be done by 7:30. I'm not sure that's the case, but
Oh,
it's-
close.
7:45 is not so bad.
Sorry.
All right.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. All right.
We can excuse
You too.
Kraus and his colleagues. Is there any other business to come before the board tonight? No. All right. Are there any other motions that any member of the board would care to make?
I will,
I missed the calendar. Can we do, go off the record or stay on the record, talk about the rest of the calendar?
Yeah, let's do the calendar. Good.
Okay.
What do we got?
Jackie, we've got September 6th, right?
So the only thing that we have scheduled for September 6th is the continuation of the that
The two we heard tonight. Yeah.
right. That's the only as far as I know, I don't have anything new to take on the 6th, and as far as I know, no one else has that. There isn't a Cynthia has left, you know, her items are being taken over by someone else who may be scheduling them for hearing at some point. And as you all know, Kevin is currently not
Right.
working. So
Do we have anything scheduled for the 21st?
I have not heard of anything scheduled for the 21st. I've been sick this week, so when we had staff meeting today, I didn't get into my yang about agendas, but I will let you know if we're going to have stuff scheduled for the 21st.
Okay, but I mean, the board's been working a pretty good schedule. If we could give
Right.
folks
I
a day off
understand.
on the 21st, that would be good.
Yeah, we'll see. Let me get a handle on, what is in the lineup to be scheduled, but and I will communicate that with you.
Great. All right.
4th, just a little further afield here. October 4th is my 25th wedding anniversary, which is a Tuesday. So count me out.
So you and your wife you don't want to bring your wife to Board of Appeals for your anniversary?
Oh, it will be, I will have to be in front of the Board of Appeals if
Okay, well, we'll make note of the fact that Christian is already, so.
Well, with our current short staffing, in order to have that meeting, we need to know that Michael and Nadine will be there.
Right, so.
How do your schedules look okay for the October 4th?
The 21st, the 4th, I have nothing right now. No. So,
Okay.
and on the 4th, I'm contemplating a boycott just out of, just to make sure that Chris can.
well, did you get my invite to the anniversary dinner?
Oh, gosh.
Oh, so don't want to come to the Board of Appeals, but you want to invite all your anniversary.
I said I was contemplating it, but if we need a
That's
forum,
not a good
I'll
idea,
do the right thing.
Have fun, Mike.
Have we talked with Mr. Deuce recently?
No, and I will send an email around to my colleagues on the board. I don't want to talk about that in the public
No,
meeting.
that's fine. I am going to talk to Hillary again about how we have at least one vacancy that needs to be filled.
Yeah, please. That'd be great. All right. Do we have another motion?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second. All in favor?